Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is George Herrera with the Queens Home Team at Keller Williams Realty. In today's video, I'm talking about letters of no objection, or a letter of no objection. What is it? How does it work? And when do you actually need it? So just straight from the New York City, the NYC.gov, the building Department of Buildings website, I pulled the definition. So I'll first just read briefly the definition of it, and then I'll go into some real world scenarios in which you might need a letter of no objection, whether you're looking to buy or sell a property, when a letter of no objection might actually come into play. So letter of no objection. Now, for buildings built prior to 1938 in New York City, they are generally not required to have a certificate of occupancy. Why? Because starting in 1938 is when they began issuing certificates of occupancy for real property, for properties in New York City. Anything built before 1938 were not required to have certificate of occupancy or a CO. Now, if you require proof of the legal use of a building, you contact the borough office where the property is located to request a letter of no objection. So in short, what that means, a letter of no objection is something, a document that you can get from the city in lieu of a C of O. So for example, let's say you have a two-family that was built in 1927. So it was built prior to 1938, which means that most likely it won't have a certificate of occupancy on file with Department of Buildings, since it was built prior to 1938 when they began issuing certificate of occupancy, right? Now, let's say that there was a conversion done after 1938 or some type of alteration that changed the use of the legal use of the building. It would have a new C of O issued if it was after 1938. But let's say just to keep it simple, in 1927, let's say that a two-family house built in 1927, there's no C of O because it was built prior to 1938, and now you're selling it. Usually this comes into play when you're selling the property, and so naturally the buyer or their attorney, they will want proof that the property that they're buying is indeed what they're buying. So if the property was marketed as a two-family and the buyer is purchasing it as a two-family, then the buyer and or their attorney will want proof, some type of proof that that is indeed a legal two-family. So they'll want to prove the legal use of that building. And the way that's done is normally with a certificate of occupancy. Every building built after 1938 or anything that was converted after 1938, changing the occupancy of a building, will have a certificate of occupancy, and then that will be the proof that that is the legal use of the building. Now, in cases when the property is built prior to 1938, the other thing that people get from the city is a letter of no objection. And that's something that you can apply for through Department of Buildings, through the borough office of where the property is located. It typically, they say that it takes 3 weeks to process, but in our experience, it can take up to 4 to 6 weeks. It's the city, so it can take a little bit longer. But let's say 3 to 6 weeks in order to actually obtain a letter of no objection. Now, many times what we'll do if a property is built prior to 1938, we'll order a CO search, and in that CO search, it will usually come back that there isn't a CO on file because it was built prior to 1938. But many times the CO search will tell us what the property was taxed as in 1938. And so let's say that we're selling a two-family and the CO search comes back and shows that in 1938 the property was being taxed as a two-family. Usually we provide that, and that usually satisfies the buyers and their attorney in lieu of the certificate of occupancy. Now, sometimes you can't find that in the CO search, or the buyer's attorney just wants some type of documentation from the city, which will usually be a letter of no objection if you don't have the CO, because the letter of no objection is what the city will issue in lieu of the C of O for properties built before 1938. Now, real quick, the application, I actually pulled down the application for a letter of no objection just to point out a few key details here in case you're thinking of requesting a letter of no objection, or if you're in the process of getting a letter of no objection. Now, some letter of no objection requests may be denied until the sign-off of related applications are provided. So, for example, a letter of no objection can be denied if an open Alt 1 application is on record. So if there's an open alteration application on record which would have changed the certificate of occupancy, so let's say it was a 2-family, there's an open application which was converting it to a 3-family, or converting just changing the occupancy of the building. If there's any type of open Alt 1 application, it can be denied. And also a letter of no objection can be denied if there are any open applications related to issues of life and safety, or hazardous, any open applications related to issues of hazardous, or work without a permit. So if there's work without a permit violations, then that can also lead to a denial for a letter of no objection. Now, this is something else that I read on here that I thought might be worth mentioning. In the case that there are no DOB or other acceptable records, or if the available information is insufficient to prove the legality of that existing use, the applicant might be required to provide additional documentation, i.e. Department of Finance records, or Sanborn maps, or city archive records, etc. So they might actually, if there's insufficient information for them to actually issue the letter of no objection, they might ask for more information. And if that were to happen, our suggestion at that point would be to enlist the help of an expediter. This is where you probably want to get an expert involved to help guide you and help give you the best chance to get that letter of no objection, and help you gather all of these documents that they might want to get from you. So you can actually do this on your own. You can apply for a letter of no objection. Just Google letter of no objection NYC. You should be able to find it there. And if for some reason it comes back with that it's insufficient or not enough information, or that they aren't able to issue a letter of no objection for one reason or another, or if they want more information, that's when you most likely would want to enlist an expediter that can help you with the rest of that information that they're asking for. If it's denied, then it would just be denied, right? So the letter of no objection, put simply, is something that serves in lieu of a certificate of occupancy. So if there's no certificate of occupancy, then you don't have that document which proves the legal use of the building. And so in lieu of that, typically a buyer or their attorney, they will want a letter of no objection, which will be issued by the city and serves in lieu of the C of O, since it was built prior to 1938. The other thing you might want to do is order a CO search, see what it was being taxed as in 1938, and that might also help you. Hopefully that sheds some light on letters of no objection, what they are, how they work. If you have any questions related to these, to the LNOs, feel free to reach us on our site, queenshometeam.com/help, and we'd be happy to help you in any way we can. You can also drop any comments if you have any questions or other topics or any other issues that you may be facing that you'd like us to help with. All right, thanks as always for tuning in, y'all. Stay tuned for next episode. Take care and have a great day.